Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. It is the last week of the year, 2016, and so we are going to just do a quick year in review, and then we are going to talk about setting genealogy goals for 2017. Now, I'm not much of a New Year's resolution person, but I am a big goal setter. I set goals often. I set them at my birthday in November. I set them this week for the new year. I set new goals every month and every week. And so I find that when I focus on goal setting as opposed to resolutions, it tends to move me forward a lot faster. And there is so much that I want to accomplish in genealogy and family history that I'm constantly setting goals in that area of my life. Now, of course, it is my career, so I'm going to be setting a lot more goals in that way, but I think that there are some ideas that maybe this little brainstorm can spark for you about things you can do to continue to climb your own family tree. So that's what we're going to cover today. Let's go ahead and dive in. Like I said, let's start with a quick year in review, just to kind of wrap our heads around what's happened around here at Ancestry in this past year. These are the current statistics off of Ancestry's corporate website for different metrics that we measure around here. One of those metrics has to do with how many records we have online. Ancestry currently has 19 billion historical records online. And I went through and counted this morning, and it looks like about 750 million, actually more than 750 million records went online this year alone. That is more than 2 million records a day. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time keeping up with the amount of information that is continually coming online. Those records come from 80 different countries. So one of the things that we're discovering is that as those of us who've been doing family history for a long time start to get back to those immigrant ancestors, there's more records that are opening up in other countries. For those of you who are just getting into family history or who might have more recent immigrant ancestors in your family tree, again, those other countries are going to be super useful. Ancestry also has more than 80 million family trees. So, millions of users uploading information that they know about their own families. And one of the things we've discovered is that very often one person may have in their files or have heard a story from grandpa or have the old family Bible or whatever, just the key piece of information that one of their distant cousins might need to keep climbing the family tree. So 80 million family trees, and through those trees, more than 8 billion connections have been made between users who are sharing information with one another about their shared family history. One of the things that sometimes is hard to wrap your head around when you first get into family history is that you share your ancestry with so many people. It's easy to see at a really close level. I have 2 parents and I have 4 siblings, and so my parents are not just my parents, they're also the parents of my 4 siblings. My dad's parents, my grandparents, had 12 grandchildren. So they are the grandparents of 12, and the great-grandparents, I think we're up to 29 great-grandchildren. So, every time you go back another generation, the number of people who descend from that couple increases. And so you start to really quickly see that there might be other people out there who are researching some of the same ancestors that you are. And Ancestry offers, through our family trees, a great way to collaborate with other users on some of that research. So those are just some of the basic statistics about the records. Another thing about records is that the Ancestry records date all the way back to the 13th century in some cases. So there are some places where records have been kept all the way back into the 1200s, and so you can use those records to continue to research your family history. When you turn around and start doing descendancy research, particularly when it comes to DNA cousins, there are also records that come down into the 2000s. Of course, that is completely dependent upon the privacy laws of the different states and countries and the access that Ancestry has given to those records, but 19 billion is a lot of records. 2.5 million, actually more than 2.5 million people have already DNA tested and are in the Ancestry DNA database. So it doesn't matter where in the world they are, if they have tested with Ancestry DNA, they're all put into that database, and everybody then that tests is compared to everyone in the database and provided with those matches. I have made a couple of really great breakthroughs in my family history research because of my DNA matches. Remember, DNA is not just about ethnicity. The ethnicity estimate is fun and informative and interesting to a lot of people, but those cousin matches that you get is where the real genealogy gold is. The ability to validate your paper trail, to make sure you're really climbing your family tree and not someone else's, that you've connected the generations correctly. That's in those DNA matches. The ability to break through some of those brick walls, or to make discoveries or connections with cousins that you never knew that might help connect you to more information. It's really fantastic. Ancestry's website handles about 75 million searches every day from you as you're building your tree and searching those records. And more than 14 million people have downloaded the free Ancestry app onto a smartphone or tablet or some kind of a mobile device. So lots and lots and lots of people out there, more people every day getting interested in family history as this becomes something of a fad and a pursuit that people finally feel capable of doing. And so the more people that come in, the more opportunity there is to make those connections, the more opportunity we have as a company to collect records and to digitize them and to get them put online for everybody to search. So that's just where we're at right now and some of the cool things that have happened this past year. As a genealogist, I'm thrilled that there are so many records online. Like I said, I can't even keep up with them. So let's talk now about looking forward to 2017. Like I said, I think pretty seriously about goal setting. If that's not your thing, maybe just some of these ideas will spark some ideas of something that you want to pursue, and you can be as formal or informal in your goal setting as you like. But because I'm such a big goal setter, I tend to think in terms of goals as something that is measurable, that I can say, I'm going to do this by this date, this much. And so you'll see that some of the way that I've written some of these ideas come out that way. Now, not all of these are my goals. Some of these are just goals that I threw in as a brainstorm for some of you to think about, but a couple of them are my goals, and I'll see if you can guess which ones. I've divided these into 4 basic areas of genealogy goals. Who knew you could do that? We're going to start with research because that's the most obvious one. Many of you probably have a family history brick wall, something that's been plaguing you or that you've been working on for a long time, and you may feel like you don't know what else you can do. One of the things that I see happen as I go out and meet with so many of you at genealogy conferences and events is that you say, oh, I've got this 20-year brick wall, and yet you keep doing the same thing over and over trying to solve that problem. And so one of the things that I think is useful is to sometimes think outside of the box. Where else could I go to get help or to get records to be able to finally solve that brick wall? Now, if you've spent any time with me, you know my biggest brick wall, my most recent in history brick wall is my John O'Brien, who may be from Ohio or Ireland and may have lived in or been born in 1836 or 1844 or anywhere in between there. I actually sat down and went through all of my John O'Brien brick wall paperwork and research last night and reviewed it all and walked through it with my dad. Now, my parents, actually both of them, got me started in family history, and so I sat down with the two of them last night because they're visiting my home for the holidays and reviewed all of it. And basically what we decided is that I probably need to hire another professional genealogist to coach me through some additional avenues that I may not have considered. Even though I'm a professional genealogist and I do this day in and day out, professional genealogists tend to specialize in certain areas, and when they specialize in a certain area, they become super proficient at that. Now, I am not proficient, I'm not specialized in Irish research. I can do some searching in Irish records, but I am not an Irish genealogy researcher. And so hiring a professional who is a specialist specifically in Irish research, I think is going to help me. They'll be able to coach me through, review what I've done, see what I haven't done yet, give me a plan, a research plan, so that I can continue to take that work forward. So that's my next step. I'm also still working on some DNA connections to help figure out my John O'Brien brick wall. I have a couple of really great leads, but again, I need an Irish researcher because both of these leads likely connect to my John O'Brien in Ireland. And so I need to figure out how to bridge that gap with available records that I'm not specifically familiar with. So that is one of my personal goals. Another possible research goal is, and you'll see I've written this like a goal, specific, time-bound, measurable. On the first Tuesday of each month, review all the new databases Ancestry has added and make a research plan for any that have information that I might need. If you've spent time with me, you know that on the first Tuesday of each month, I do an episode of this show called What's New at Ancestry, where I review some of the larger or more interesting databases that Ancestry has added each month. But it's certainly not an exhaustive list. But during that video, I show you exactly how to go find what new databases have been added in the past month. And so maybe you want to just put something on your calendar that the first Tuesday of every month, the first Wednesday of every month, you go and look at all the new databases Ancestry has added and make a note or bookmark the ones that you think might be beneficial to your research so that you can go back to them throughout the month and do some more in-depth research. There are certainly a list of databases that I have never gotten around to that I want to do that with. So maybe another research goal might be pick a database each week to mine extensively for any records that I might be missing for family members who lived in that period of time in that place. And that is a type of research goal. Go crazy, think about what's going to affect you the most or be the most beneficial to your family history research, and set some goals around that. Stick them on your calendar. Doesn't matter if you're putting them in the calendar for next October, but get them written down. And I've found that if I write them down, I'm more likely to actually accomplish those goals. And sometimes just having them on my calendar in the anticipation, I get to doing them earlier because I can see it staring me in the face. Another type of family history goal has to do with education. I have a lot of education goals because I recognize that there are continually new things happening in family history. New records, new areas to explore, new time periods to understand, laws that affect the records, that affect the lives of my ancestors. So there's lots of things to always be learning. And it's really easy to get overwhelmed by all of the information that's available. So I've found that setting very specific genealogy goals relating to education just helps me manage that overwhelm of information that's sometimes available. So here are just some ideas for you to think about as you start to set some education goals. One is, or could be, to attend at least one major genealogy conference this year. Again, in that What's New episode each month, I talk about what genealogy conferences are coming up. There are there are here in the United States 5 major genealogy conferences each year, and then there are a couple internationally as well. And so be sure to check those out. The Roots Tech in Salt Lake City is in January. There is the Federation of Genealogical Societies annual conference in May. There is the Southern California Genealogy Jamboree in June. The Jewish Genealogical Society, the international organization's annual conference is in July or August, depending on the year. And then the National Genealogical Society's conference, I think I may have switched FGS and NGS, is held Labor Day weekend. 4 of those events rotate cities every year, so if, you want to look and see if there's one near you. Ancestry does a few Ancestry Days in different cities around the world, around the country every year. And this coming year, we're going to be doing a large ancestry event in Ontario, Canada as well. So lots of different genealogy events and conferences. If you can't make it to a major genealogy event, contact your state genealogical society. See if they're hosting an annual conference in your state. Or a lot of times, the LDS Church, local or congregations will host genealogy conferences each year as well. They typically call those family discovery days. And so you can do an internet search for that in your local area as well. But attend a genealogy conference, especially if you haven't ever before. If you have attended a genealogy conference before, maybe look into one of the more in-depth educational opportunities like an institute. Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy is just one of several in-depth institutes that are available to help advance your genealogy education. And I attend or try to attend one of those every year, in addition to attending all of the major genealogy conferences. Another type of education goal you can set has to do with webinars just like this one. I have it on my calendar to listen to at least one genealogy webinar a week that's not my own, and to take notes and to apply what I've learned. Ancestry Academy, if you're not familiar with that, you'll find it under the Extras button on your Ancestry main menu. Ancestry Academy has a lot of free courses as well as several courses that you can pay for if you do not have the World Deluxe subscription to Ancestry. If you have that top tier subscription to Ancestry, those are available for free. Otherwise, you can pay for some of those classes. Those classes are taught by the very people that are the instructors at the conferences and the institutes. They're people who are experts in their very specific fields of family history research, and they can offer a wealth of information in just a short hour or hour and a half webinar. Lots of other places, the National Archives, Family Search, other places that offer online webinars that you can take advantage of. Easily you could listen to at least one webinar a week and still not get through all of the information available. But again, don't get overwhelmed, just set a manageable goal for yourself. Another type of goal that you might be thinking about if you're a little bit further along in your genealogy journey is certifying. You can become a certified or an accredited genealogist. You do not have to be a professional to do that. One of the things that certification and accreditation do is it tests your skills. So if you think that you are an amazing genealogist, going through this process actually will help you see exactly where the holes are in your methodology, in your research skills, and help kind of shore those up. And that can only help you be a better genealogist. Now, why would you want to be a better genealogist? Well, again, it always comes back to what I always say. It's going to help you ensure that you're climbing your family tree and not somebody else's. With the time and the energy that so many of us spend on family history research, I want to make sure I'm doing it right. And so I continually set education goals to make sure that I'm doing it right so that I have accurate information. One of the things that we're seeing that's kind of interesting is people have been building trees, and now people are starting to take DNA tests. And if you weren't careful about how you built your tree, your DNA results aren't going to make sense. and one of the benefits of doing both of those things is that they can kind of help shore each other up a little bit. But if you haven't taken the time to build your tree correctly, those DNA results are going to be a little bit more confusing than they might be otherwise. So if you are interested, you can join me. This is actually one of my goals for this coming year, is to gather the paperwork and decide on a project to use to go through the process of certification. The organization that does that is called the Board for Certification of Genealogists, and then the other organization is called the International Certification Accreditation. It's ICAP Gen. I can't remember the exact words for that, but it's ICAP Gen. ICAP Gen is the organization that offers the accreditation. Okay, a couple of other areas that you can set goals in, and again, these are just some brainstorms. There are a lot of service opportunities in family history. There are random acts of genealogical kindness. There are Facebook groups. There are also indexing programs. Ancestry offers an indexing program called the World Archives Project. You'll find that under our community information under the help menu on Ancestry. So you can sign up to index records, and if you are an active indexer, When your subscription renewal time rolls around, you can actually get a discount on your subscription to Ancestry. You also are giving back to the community. Any records that are indexed through the Ancestry World Archives Project are actually, those indexes are placed online for free, so anybody can access them whether they have a subscription or not. And that World Archives Project community has done some amazing work and placed a lot of records online and made them available to anybody. So it's a great way to give back to the genealogy community. Your local genealogical society may have an indexing program going, lots of different places to find that opportunity to serve. Another service opportunity is to volunteer at your local genealogical society. It doesn't have to be at the state level. There's often local chapters of state genealogical societies. There are genealogical societies for different ethnic groups. There are sometimes just local clubs or societies that might meet through your library or in your local community. And they're always looking for volunteers, people to handle program scheduling or coordinate with the library to have the space available or to type up a newsletter, or lots of different ways that you can serve in those. The final area for genealogy goal setting for 2017, for me at least, is housekeeping. I tend to get so wrapped up in my family history that my regular housekeeping falls by the wayside, much less my genealogy housekeeping. And so I've just set a couple of housekeeping goals for my family history. One of those is to spend an hour each month scanning certificates and old documents and photos that I might not have scanned yet, and then to spend the rest of the month uploading those, tagging them, making sure that they're clean images, making sure they're well labeled, researching anything that needs to be researched because of that document or that photo, and then attaching them to the appropriate people in my family tree so that all of that information is available. I find that that's about the right balance. If I spend an hour scanning, then the rest of the time through the month, I can take what I spent scanning in that hour and getting it researched and uploaded and notated appropriately. Another thing that you can do is maybe just set some time aside, sometime in the calendar in the next 12 months, to go through and clean out your old paper files. I started doing family history fairly seriously when I was about 12 years old, and over the course of the last 30 years, I've collected so much stuff. I have old binders and papers and notebooks and files, and so much of it is actually duplicate things that I printed out a long time ago, or sometimes I have 2 and 3 copies of old pedigree charts or family group sheets, and all of that information has now been digitized. It's in my online tree, it's in my software, it's backed up to a million places, and I have a clean, current printed copy in some cases. I don't need to be keeping 20 other copies of that old pedigree chart or that old family group sheet that I used 30 years ago. And so I kind of do it in piecemeal, but my intention or my goal is to actually set aside a chunk of time, and February seems like a great time because we're kind of stuck inside for those of us who live in colder climates, to just sit down and start to go through some of that stuff really purposefully, compare it to what I've got in my tree, make sure I've got all of the information copied and available. So that is all I have prepared for you today. It was not certainly an exhaustive list, but I think that those 4 categories, research, education, service, and family history housekeeping, are enough to get you started brainstorming some of your own ideas and calendaring them out for things you would like to accomplish with your family history in the next 12 months. If you set some of those goals and would be willing to share those, please do so in the comments here on YouTube. I would love to see some of the goals that you're setting. I think other people might need some help with some of that brainstorming. And then as you accomplish some of those things, come back and report them to us. I find that when I have somebody to be accountable to, I'm more likely to do it. Plus, I always love finding a tribe of people who are willing to be excited as I actually accomplish the goals that I set for myself, and I will be thrilled for you. If you're able to set some of those goals and accomplish them, I want to hear all about it. I'm also putting together the calendar for these videos for 2017. Historically, we kind of just run a week or two in advance of the topics, but what I'd really like to do for 2017, this is a professional goal as well as a genealogy goal, is to actually calendar out at least 3 months worth of these topics and have them published on the Ancestry Facebook events page so that you know what's coming and can start to plan your own genealogy education a little bit better. So if you have suggestions for topics, I would love to hear those. You can email at ask@ancestry.com. That's ask@ancestry.com with any of those suggestions for topics you'd like to have me cover in these videos each week. That's all I have for you today. Everybody have a safe and happy new year, and I will see you next week. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.